Hello and welcome to the IT lab where I build and test IT solutions. In the last video I gave myself a challenge. Could I build a smart knowledge base using modern SharePoint? I got as far as building the foundation with structured content types, metadata, templates and versioning all in place. Now it's time to take things further. In this video I'll show you how to automate the publishing workflow so approvals are tracked, metadata is updated and everything runs smoothly behind the scenes. Alright, let's get started. To track approvals and create a clear audit trail, I built a custom SharePoint list called Approval Log. This list captures key details every time a page is approved, so authors and approvers can see exactly what happened and when. I started by adding a page ID column which will be used to reference the page being approved. I renamed the default title column to page title and added a page link column to store a direct hyperlink to the published page. Next, I created an approver name column to capture who reviewed and approved the page. I added an approval status column to show whether the page was approved or cancelled. Then I renamed the default created column to review date, so it reflects when the review actually took place, which is the date the list item gets created. I added a review comments column to store any notes or feedback from the approver. And finally, I added an approver email column to capture the email address of the page approver. This list acts as the backend log for the publishing workflow. Later in the flow, Power Automate will write to this list automatically, so no one has to update it manually. To show customized views, I created one for all users and one for authors in the Site Pages library. The Home view shows only the essential columns and filters for pages with a status of approved. The Admin Home view filters for any pages that aren't approved and are of the KB page content type. I'll be using these views and pages that act as the front end and back end of this knowledge base. With all the functional components in place, the next step was designing a user-friendly interface. I started by editing the home page, which was blank since the site was built from a blank template. I added two key web parts. First, an editorial card that acts as a visual header and includes a button for admins to jump straight to the authoring page. I'll add the link later. Second, a document library web part that displays the site pages library using the home view I created earlier. This way, readers only see content that's being reviewed and published, since the view is filtered for approved pages. Next, I created the admin home page, which opens when clicking the admin view button. This page mirrors the structure of the home page, but is tailored for authors. The site pages web part here uses the admin home view, so it only shows non-approved pages, including drafts, pages in review, and cancelled items. The button on this page links directly to the new page creation URL, making it easy for authors to choose the correct template when starting a new page. Since this page is only intended for authors, I also locked down the permissions. Now, users who aren't part of the KB Authors security group, like this test user, are unable to access the admin homepage. Before setting up the approval automation flow, I also created a few KB pages for testing. This gave me a chance to demonstrate how authors would create content using the templates we configured earlier. With the front end and back end in place, the next step was building the Power Automate flow that handles the approval process. I'm creating this flow using the automation account, so it owns the flow and runs under that identity. I started by creating an automated cloud flow and selected the trigger when an item or file is modified from SharePoint. This allows the flow to monitor the site pages library for any changes. But I didn't want the flow to run every time someone edits or republishes a page, so I added trigger conditions to narrow down exactly when the flow should fire. First, I checked that the content type is KB page. This ensures the flow only runs for knowledge base pages. Then I added a second condition using an AND clause to check that the page status has just changed to in review, meaning the current value is in review, but the previous value was something else. This prevents the flow from triggering if someone simply republishes or saves a page that's already in the status of in review. Once the trigger conditions are in place, I initialize a string variable called getApproverEmails. This will hold the list of approvers' email addresses built dynamically depending on whether the page is a fresh submission or a resubmission. Next, I use a getItems action to query the approval log list, checking for any entries with the same page ID and a status of rejected. I then use a control condition to check if any items were returned. If no rejected entries are found, it's a fresh submission. I use the list group members action to pull approvers from the KB approvers security group using the group's object ID. I then use append to string variable to add each approver's email address separated by semicolons. Power Automate automatically wraps this in a for each loop. If the page has been rejected before, I skip the group lookup and instead loop through the previous log entries to send the approval request only to those who rejected it last time. With the email list built, I use the start and wait for an approval action. I chose a custom response approval so that I could have three options: approved, rejected, and cancelled. The approval request includes dynamic content for the title, details, and item link. In the assign to field, I used the string variable we built earlier for the email list. I also removed the option for approvers to reassign the request. As responses come in, I create a new item in the approval log list, capturing the approver's decision, comments, and email address. Again, Power Automate wraps this in a for each loop to process each response. Next, I update the approval log list in the page's metadata. I grab the SharePoint list URL and add a page ID URL parameter with the dynamic value of the ID. This creates a filtered view of the log, so authors and approvers can see the full approval history for that page. Then I use a switch control to process the outcome. Unfortunately, the start and wait for an approval action doesn't return a single outcome string, so I check the array of responses manually. If all responses are approved, I update the page status to approved and set the approval date. If any response is rejected, I update the page status to draft so that the author can revise and resubmit. If any response is cancelled, the page status is set to cancelled even if others selected something else. Before publishing the flow, I renamed each step to make it easier to follow, maintain and troubleshoot, especially if someone else needs to work on it later or if I need to revisit it in a few months. This also gives us a good recap of the flow from start to finish. The flow is triggered when a KB page is put in review. A variable is created to hold approver emails. The approver log is checked for previous rejections. If it's a fresh submission, approvers are pulled from the security group. If it's a resubmission, only previous rejectors are notified. A filtered link is added to the page metadata. If approved, the page status is updated and the approval date is set. If rejected, the page goes back to draft. If cancelled, the page is marked as cancelled. With the flow in place, the publishing process becomes automated, transparent, and easy to manage. With the flow in place, it was time to test it from the author's perspective. I started by going into the admin view, opened one of the KB pages we created earlier, changed the page status to in review, and republished the page to trigger the Power Automate flow. The flow triggered successfully, and I could see the approval action was now in a waiting state. That confirms an email was sent to all approvers in the KB Approvers security group, which currently includes 2 users. I logged in as both approvers and verified that the email had arrived. It included the title, description, and a link to the page exactly as configured. The link worked, allowing approvers to read the page before making a decision. To test the first branch, where all approvers approve, I approved the request and added comments. I received a confirmation email showing my decision and the comments I submitted. I repeat the same steps for the second approver. If everything worked, the flow should complete successfully, update the page status to approved, and log both approvers' details in the approval log. And that's exactly what happened. The flow shows a successful run, and by clicking into the actions, I can view the raw output and confirm the logic. As a standard user, I can now see the page displayed on the home page, confirming the status is approved, since that's the filter applied to the site page's view. Switching back to the author view, I checked the page metadata and clicked the approval log link. It opened a filtered view showing only the entries related to that page, a clean and focused audit trail. Next, it was time to test the rejection branch. As the author, I put another page in review. It appeared in my work in progress list with the status in review. I confirmed the flow was running, and as an approver, I received the email and viewed the page. This time, it was an FAQ type page. To simulate a rejection, I approved the request as one user and rejected it as the other. The flow correctly followed the rejection branch. Back in the author view, I saw the page status had reverted to draft in my work in progress list. This confirms the flow logic is working. The author now needs to review the rejection comments, make changes, and resubmit the page. While I was checking the approval log list, I decided to improve readability by applying conditional formatting, so I set background colors for each status: approved, rejected, and cancelled. I then made a small change to the rejected page. I added an extra question and put it back in review before publishing. This time, only the approver who previously rejected the page should receive the approval request. I verified this by checking both inboxes. The first approver didn't receive an email, but the second one did. That confirms the resubmission logic is working correctly. I approved the page, and the flow followed the first approval branch again. As a standard user, I saw the page appear on the home page, and when I checked the approval log, I saw the full audit trail, including both the original rejection and the final approval. The final test was for the cancelled branch. I put another draft page in review and had one approver approve it, while the other selected cancelled. Since the flow logic treats any cancellations as final, the page status was set to cancelled. I verified this in the flow results and saw it followed the correct branch. And that's the publishing workflow, fully automated, cleanly designed, and ready for real-world use. Across these two videos, we've gone from a blank site to a fully working knowledge base. Authors can create pages with confidence, approvers get a smooth review experience, and only approved content makes it to the front door. When I kicked off this lab, I challenged myself to build a full knowledge base using modern SharePoint. By using tools already available, I was able to create a working solution. Hopefully this lab proves that with a bit of imagination, you can absolutely build something similar and really make the most of your Microsoft E3 or E5 licenses. If you found this helpful, now it's time to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people. And if you want to go deeper, head over to rajendrasidhu.com and sign up for free. You'll get notified whenever I publish new lab posts that support these videos.